Danielle and I am back with another layout. I'm going to be scrapbooking these two photos of my daughter holding a worm that she had found. And I know that I want all of my papers and photos to form a square. And I know I want my two photos to be positioned at the top of that square. So I've pre-cut some pattern paper just to fill in the gaps. These first two pieces of paper came from my hip kit, and this last piece of paper came from my Felicity Jane kit. It has little thin red stripes on the one side and yellow with white polka dots on the other side, and I really want to use the yellow side because I just think it's so cute. But I just feel like there's a lot of polka dots going on this page, and the red side I think just looks a little bit better, so I do end up choosing the red side. So now that I have my papers in place, I just need to get my embellishments all together. Now I've pre-printed my journaling on just some computer paper. I thought I had cardstock in my printer, but I didn't. And I didn't want to reprint it. Computer paper's a little thin and you could kind of see through it. So I made a second, or I cut a second sheet of that computer paper just to have the option of layering it if I want. And now I'm going to position all of my embellishments that I've picked out. So most of these came from my Felicity Jane kit, except for this chipboard piece that says happy, and that came from the chipboard sheet in my hip kit. I cut these little arrows out from the cut apart sheet, and I really like the pop of color that it adds to this layout. And I'm just going to line them up in a row, and I'm going to do 2 lines and just offset them a little bit. I had considered mixing up the order that the colors go in, but I decided to just keep them in the same order. But I like the way that looks in that lower left hand corner of my layout. But looking at it now, I realize that it feels a little empty, and so I decide to make a border around my layout, and I'm going to have it be a pretty thick border. I end up cutting 2 inches off of 2 sides of my background paper. So now I have a 10-inch square. So that leaves an inch border around my layout, and you'll see here that it's a pretty thick border, and I really like it. The paper that I chose is this cream paper that I got from Michael's. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite neutrals. I really like it. I used to use it a lot more than I do now, but I still really like it, and every time I go to Michael's, I almost always buy a sheet of this. Now I'm just getting those 2 papers taped together, and then I'm going to start putting my layout back together. And the second I start putting all of my stuff back on my page, I instantly like it better. Having that thick border makes for a much cuter page, I think. And so I'm just, like I said, sticking everything back down on my layout and using the tape runner to kind of commit to this placement of everything. So as I said in the beginning, these are photos of my daughter holding this worm, and I wanted to scrapbook this story because it just shocked me so much when she brought this worm over to me. We were visiting from some friends, and they have 2 little girls, so all 3 girls were kind of playing in the dirt. And my little girl, if you've watched my channel, you know that she's a girly girl for sure. And she hates bugs so much. If there's a fly or any sort of bug around her, she just screams. And then if that happens to land on her, if a fly lands on her, she just starts shaking and screaming. And she loves to camp, and so it becomes a little bit frustrating when we go camping. And so we're definitely trying to teach her that it's not a big deal, but she just really doesn't like bugs. So for her to bring this worm to me, I was shocked, and I had my phone in my hand, and I instantly took these pictures because I was just so shocked that she had this worm in her hand. But she really liked it, and after she was done admiring it, we went and found some dirt to put it back in, and she just loved the whole process. So I just thought the whole thing was bizarre and cute at the same time. So I definitely wanted to scrapbook this story in her book. So I'm just using my Tombow tape runner to tape everything down to my layout. This flare, I decided to take some red line tape and just use that to make sure that it stays down real good. You'll see that I did decide to make a second layer on my little journaling spot. I just think that looks better. And the top layer, I ruffled up the edges a little bit just so it didn't look so perfect. My journaling has that kind of the spacing of it. There's just a little dent in my journaling, so it makes a perfect spot for that flare. I didn't plan on it, but it was the perfect little spot to put that flare. And now I'm just getting these arrows taped down into place, and I'm just measuring everything out so that I can make sure it's exactly where I want that to be. And once I get these put down, I like the way everything looks, but I want a little bit more. So I decided to take the whole layout over to my sewing machine and get some stitching on it. You'll see that I did a couple messy lines in the upper right hand section on that wood grain paper. I wasn't careful at all. I just did 2 uneven lines. And then I put 1 line down the center of each of those arrows. And I'm just getting all of the strings cut off. And then I think the only thing I have left to do on this layout is to get the date put on it. So I take my Project Life date stamp and some Hero Arts ink in soft granite, and I just do a messy date stamp on the bottom of my layout. And it wasn't until after I turned the camera off and looked at my layout again that I realized I want to have something more down by that flare button. So I get out some gray enamel dots and I put a couple of them down by that flare button. So you'll see here that my little girl loves my enamel dots. She loves to play with them, and I usually just let her play with them and then just save the sheets of paper and reuse them again. It's not that big of a deal to me. So I call the layout done at this point, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you all very, very soon. All right, bye-bye.